let me talk about the wall for a second.
Sure.
The wall already covers about 700 miles of a 2,000-mile border. And sorry to get technical, but the west side of the U.S.-Mexico border is straight lines. Borders that were drawn arbitrarily. Bottom of California, bottom of Arizona, maybe a quarter of the bottom of New Mexico. Then when Texas comes in and hits New Mexico, then the border follows the jagged Rio Grande all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. So the straight borders that are arbitrary are already fenced, and they have decent fencing. I'm sure it could be made better or taller or less penetrable. But then you've got this Rio Grande area that runs for 1,300 miles, where it's the river that's the border, and that's largely not walled off. And there are various reasons for that. One is you have problems of eminent domain. A lot of the land along the Rio Grande border is privately owned. Trump says he'll just go ahead and confiscate that land, but that's legally tough. Also, the people who own ranches and land along that, if you own a ranch, apparently you need to be able to get to the river. There's a lot of business you can do with the river, and if it's fenced off, then you're a little bit screwed. So there'd be a lot of stuff to work out about where you put the fence. If you put the fence on the other side of the river, well, that's Mexico's land, and is Mexico going to say, "Oh yeah, go ahead," and anyway, it's a mess. Also, the jagged river border tends to be less penetrable, hence the no, I'm not. There's a term, wetbacks. That's I mean, for people who, and that term, it's not a nice term, but it comes from people who crossed the Rio Grande to get into America, the river. Though, that Rio Grande is one of those rivers that's not much of a river part of the year, right? Right. But anyway.
How dare you?
Yeah,
How dare you? You will never work in this town again.
Yeah, but it's so. I gotta say, we're in the middle of this shutdown.
Racist.
All right, and not only is shit problematic because the issue is problematic, the shit is problematic because each side sees political advantage to be gained by not agreeing with the other side. In the past, both sides have grudgingly, Democrats and Republicans have grudgingly been able to reach compromise that is allowed for 700 miles of wall and fencing to be built and security to be imposed along the whole 2,000-mile border. And now, there's, at least for these last couple weeks, people haven't been willing to compromise. This is now the third longest shutdown in history. And when it gets to be the longest shutdown in history, I think there will be some compromise. Where the Democrats have at various times agreed to $1.3 billion to start building some kind of increased border security, the wall. The Republicans, mostly Trump, says he wants $5.6 billion. At some point, somebody, I think Pence maybe, said they'd be willing to settle for $2.5 billion. I know something will happen in the next couple of weeks, and almost nobody is in favor of an open border. And they're all. We've spent much of the last hour talking about the various dimensions of people getting in and overstaying visas and where drugs come from. And there's this one more thing. There's this statistic that 4,000 terrorists have been caught crossing the southern border. And this turns out to be bullshit because 4,000 people have been subject to extra scrutiny as they've tried to cross the southern border because they come from nations that terrorists have come from. So it hasn't been 4,000 terrorists, it's been 4,000 attempted immigrants who come from countries that have been associated with terrorism. Which isn't the same thing. I mean, it's not the best thing, but it's not the same thing as an army of 4,000 terrorists coming across the border. It's a mess. It's a mess logistically. It's a mess rhetorically. And obviously, the actual people involved are more important than the words being misused. But they're still messy in a lot of dimensions. And now I want to talk about automobile bumpers.
Actually, Rick, you know what? This isn't actually the Rick Rosner show.
Yeah, no,
I get to
talking. Yeah, you go ahead. You go ahead.
My learned opponent is, as I've said on many occasions, he is, whenever the subject of the wall comes up, I actually heard a Democrat politician, I think it was, I'm going to go out on a limb, I believe it was Claire McCaskill, she's a Republican. It was one of the people running for Senate this year who lost, a Republican incumbent, a Democrat incumbent. And she said off camera, when it was a private sort of a thing, that whenever anybody talks about building a wall, the most important thing is to start talking about all the details. Say sometimes it's necessary, there's different terrain, say it's a mess, say it's very difficult, there are all kinds of legal issues, and then finally the reporter will sort of their eyes will glaze over, and you've sort of answered the question without saying you just want to build a wall. So that's what Rick is doing right now. What Rick is doing is he's doing the Democrat bidding, the Democrat plan of always talk about how complicated it is. Never just say, we need to build a wall. Except when Rick comes out and says, everyone wants to build a wall without any evidence whatsoever. And we had an argument, don't you dare. We had an argument for about a half an hour 2 months ago where I kept saying, can you show me? I asked him, give me the name of one Democrat politician that has announced, I want to build a wall. And you couldn't do it. So the truth is, the Democrats have done two things to you. They've confused you into thinking about all the complexities and the details about building it, which the engineers will take care of. And then they've convinced you that they really, really want to build a wall. They just want a better deal. And then last week I actually argued with you. I said to you, so if you really, really don't want your wife to be raped, do you say, listen, I really don't want my wife to be raped, but you can rape her until we get a deal? No, you just say, I don't want you raping my wife. And then you do that, you enact that. That's because you really don't want that to happen. But you couldn't come up with a single Democrat politician that just said, yeah, the Republicans want to build a wall, I want to build a wall, let's just enact a law, let's build a wall. Instead, they're negotiating over it.
Yeah.
Because they're willing to give up this thing you insist that they want.
Okay,
so they can get something else.
So wait.
No. I'm still talking. You talked until I wanted to kill myself. I was contemplating suicide. You talked so much last time.
Okay, and I just talked a lot now.
The way I was gonna do it was listen, it's not important. I'm not finished.
Yeah, but let me agree with you for a second. I'm not sure there is a Democrat holding national office right now that would support a wall across all 2,000 miles. What I hear from them is wall where it makes sense, and then other measures where it doesn't make sense.
You see, this is why you're crazy. This is why you're brainwashed. I just got through telling you that they keep making it complicated. It's not up to the fucking senator from Wyoming to determine what the engineering is going to go like on the border. It's up to the Corps of Engineers or the company they hire. If you really want a wall, you don't say, well, now what kind of wall? I was a shoe salesman in Indianapolis. I've got an opinion about what kind of wall that's going to be.
But
no, you don't. You hire a company and you say, build us a wall, and then they build you a wall.
Well, that's not what Democrats want. And we're going to agree that's not what Democrats
and
want.
you cannot interrupt me to agree with me. That's worse. You keep saying that
All
so
right,
that you can get away
talk,
with
and then
interrupting.
I'll rebut when you're done. Go ahead.
Okay. Trump said something very simple, which he is apt to do. He said, drones and Border Patrol agents do not stop. Drones and surveillance does not stop. There's no high tech that stops someone from walking over the border. You can have the best drone on earth, and it won't stop someone from walking over. What they have found is, and what the Border Patrol is asking for, is a physical barrier. I don't give a flying fuck what kind of barrier Nancy Pelosi says is appropriate. Right now, there are several designs for different walls. I can describe them to you. I don't want to, because then I'm playing your stupid game.
That's fine.
Okay. There are walls made of metal with slats that are only 4 inches apart.
You were going to do this, but yeah, I know.
There are walls with rounded surfaces that can't be climbed over.
Yeah.
There are walls that are 30 feet high. And the important thing about those barriers is that they prevent people from coming over unless they have elaborate equipment. They could do it with cranes, but by the time they wheel the crane up, or the trucks, or the equipment they need to get over that wall, then the Border Patrol will see them. So you can't protect the entire border with Border Patrol agents and drones. You need physical barriers. And the places where there are no physical barriers, for whatever reason, those will be the choke points that the Border Patrol agents will go to physically. Now stop making it complicated like a good brainwashed Democrat. Either you want a barrier or you don't. And if you do, then you will go with Trump, who is trying to protect this country from 1, criminals, 2, illegals that will take our jobs, 3, people that will come in here and get our bringing drugs and human trafficking with them. They bring 80% of the women that come over the border have been raped. They actually have to take birth control before they begin the journey because they know that the coyotes are going to rape them.
All right. So
and they know that the journey has some chance of success because the Democrats will not allow a barrier to be built that a pregnant woman couldn't get over. And because the Democrat judges have now made it illegal for ICE and for the Border Patrol, for the people on the border, to keep these people in penitentiaries, in places where they're controlled. They've made it illegal. So the Democrat judges, are releasing them by the hundreds. Every single day, the Democrat judges are releasing hundreds of more illegals. So even if they make it over the border, and even if they're stopped, and even if they're incarcerated, the Democrat judges are releasing them into the public.
So it's a flood.
It's a flood, and it's catch and release all over again. It's catch and release all over again, all of which would not have happened
If we could just
If
throw
we,
them in
if,
camps
if,
and
if,
jails,
if we
and
could
you
build,
die, it's okay.
if we could build a wall,
But you can't.
a physical barrier.
Hi, Yelly.
Now, let me tell you one more thing.
Okay.
If we can build the 405,
Have you been on the? You've been,
if we can build, if we can build the 405,
How
if we
well
can,
does the
if we can
405
build the
work?
405, we can build a wall.
The 405 is the
Okay,
busiest
okay,
freeway
okay.
in America.
Yeah,
In
don't
some
divert,
places-
don't divert.
Yeah.
If we can build a 405, we can build a wall. And that barrier will prevent people from flooding over the border and into our system, where the Democrats can release them.
Yeah, well, I disagree about a lot of this. The 405 is even though it's 10 lanes across.
Nobody gives a shit your opinion of the 405.
I can still say it. 10 lanes, 5 in each direction, 12 maybe in some places. Unusable because of just gridlock. 14, 16 hours a day. Not a good example. Anyway, back when I was a kid.
Real quick, okay. Are you changing subject?
No.
Okay.
Back when it looked like I might have a future as somebody who actually did smart things, I wrote a paper. My first published paper was on a thing called dimensional analysis. Basically what it is you take all the factors, the costs, and everything else about, you make a graph with a bunch of intersecting lines of all your possible solutions to a problem and the cost of those solutions, and you end up with a polygon where it'll generally turn out that there's a point on that polygon that suggests the cheapest solution to the problem. And I would say that the border problem is simple in some places. For 700 miles, where you've got scrub and an arbitrary border, and there's already existing fencing and walls, then yeah, beef up that stuff. But 1,300 miles of the border are Rio Grande, the river, and it's not simple to, it may take
We can't do it. It's impossible. The United States can build freeways all around the country, but we can't build a wall a tenth of the size of a freeway. We can't do it. It could be done in ancient China, but we can't do it. Do you know that Jerry Brown is building a train,
the bullet train.
the bullet train to nowhere for $40 billion? Mm-hmm. But we can't come up with $5 billion to protect the border? This is what we need to do. Trump has to call out the army and say, our country is being invaded. This is a national emergency. And we need to build, and the military should start building the wall. That the military is authorized to defend this country any way that it can, and this is how they should do it. If the military says that the way we have to do this is by building a wall on the border, they should just start building it.
Even though it's people's private land.
Eminent domain, take it. And by the way, the people on their private land, they are begging Trump to build a wall. You got that all wrong. Those people on the border that have that private property are being raped and murdered by your buddies, the illegals. And they're begging for a wall to be built.
The same way that ex-presidents are telling Trump to build the wall.
Do you know that the cities along the border in Texas have the worst crime?
Director lives in one of those cities. How's it going there, Director, in McAllen, Texas? A border city.
It's actually doing pretty well. I didn't experience any crime when I was there.
Okay.
Anecdotal evidence, Rick. There are cities on the border now where the Mexican cartels are now exercising influence over American cities because they don't have a barrier. So it's all of Mexico's corruption is seeping into our country because of you and your Democrats.
When we break, we'll look up polling about people who live in border districts, because the statistics don't support you. And
Rick, I don't need polling about people that live in border districts.
they're the ones who are going to have their property taken.
I don't know who are they asking? Maybe they're asking illegal aliens. There are people. The people in the city of Texas, in the cities in Texas, want a border. They want a wall. They want the United States. And if you're talking about the American people want a secure border. They want a wall. That's how Trump got elected. We were there, remember?
Yeah, because 40% of the population is not good at this shit.
Yeah, okay, we're dumb because we want a wall on the border. You're smart because you want what? The river?
No, I want the wall where it's appropriate, and then other measures where it might make more sense. Or analysis of the specifics of the geography.
I see. Analysis of the specifics of the geography. You're doing what the Democrats want. You want a fucking wall, Rick. Don't make it complicated.
No, I'm not.
No, you don't want a wall. You don't want a wall. Some places you want a wall, some places you don't.
Yep.
Why don't you leave it up to the engineers to decide? Why don't you just say, here's $5.7 billion. You go ahead and build the best thing you can build. Why don't you just do that, Rick?
No.
No, fuck that.
No, because you hire people.
You're dragging your feet.
No,
You bought it. The second smartest man in America, and he bought it.
Yeah, because
he bought it. He's dragging his feet. You will not pay them. You will not give them the money, right?
Now,
Don't release the money, right, Rick? Don't release the money.
Well, at some point, the two sides are going to have to negotiate. Otherwise, the government's going to stay shut down. And they will have to come up with a combination there are a bunch of dimensions to the illegal immigrant problem. And they're going to have to address at least some of those dimensions. And yeah, money's going to be involved, billions of dollars. How it's spent will be negotiated. And I assume that neither side will be satisfied, but whatever solution they negotiate will lead to solutions that are better than what's currently going on.
That is the most... What do you sound like a high school principal trying to make a speech at a PTA meeting? That was pathetic, Rick. Let me tell you something. If you want a wall, you say, Nancy Pelosi...
Fuck your stupid wall. How about fuck your stupid wall?
Exactly. You don't want a wall. You don't want a wall. You don't want a wall.
50 times I've said a wall where a wall makes the most sense.
Then why don't you authorize the release of the $5.7 billion? Just say, you know what? Here's the money. Build the best wall you can. Why don't you just go? Because you can't do it. Because you're brainwashed. You're brainwashed. You're brainwashed. That's the reason.
No.
So Rick, do we release the money to build the wall or not? Yes or no?
It's not up to me.
What do you mean it's not up to you? This is our fucking show.
All right, the deal is at some point there will be a negotiated compromise.
What's the negotiated compromise? You tell me.
It may involve, and what do you call the birth? It may involve birthright. It may involve dreamers.
Fuck that.
It may involve.
Do you want a wall or not, or do you want to make a big deal?
I've said 500 times a wall where it's appropriate.
Then just say. Then just release the money. I don't want the other shit. Either you want it released or you don't.
No.
You want a deal. You want to make a deal.
No, you're just oversimplifying for the sake of.
You can say we want to make a wall, and then you can make one. You don't have to involve it with anything else. You're the one that wants to complicate it because the Democrats want you to make it complicated.
No.
They're making it complicated because they don't want to do it, Rick. Think about it. No. They keep saying, what about the dreamers? Right, what about birthright citizenship?
This is complete bullshit. There's 700 miles of wall already. It could be made better. There's 1,300 miles of river. There are probably a few hundred miles of that where it would be relatively easy to build the wall. Build it there if it's easy and cheap and effective.
You don't know a goddamn thing about the state of the wall on the border. You memorized 3 numbers, 1,300, 700, and a few hundred. Okay? The math is irrelevant. You either requisition the money to build one or you don't. It's up to the engineers when they get to the border to decide how to do it. You're dragging your feet. You're making it impossible because you keep throwing in all these things. You say, wow, I'm for building a wall, but what about the dreamers? I'm for building a wall, but what about the birthright citizenship? I'm for building a wall, but where are you going to build it? I mean, there are such different terrains.
I just said I'm not for building the wall where it doesn't make sense to.
Nobody is for building a wall where it doesn't make sense to build a wall. Nobody. It is your imagination.
That's the first time you've said that.
There is no one on earth that thinks we should build a wall where it's stupid to build a wall.
Okay, that's a good point.
Nobody thinks they should build a wall on the top of a 3,000 foot mountain.
All right, well,
nobody thinks they should build a wall in the bottom of the ocean. Okay?
Yeah.
Rick, they're going to build a correct wall. Now stop dragging your feet and admit that the Democrats have confused you and are putting all this stuff on so that we'll never get one built.
Nah, I mean, what the deal is, what's happened is the Democrats have been forced into the position you're claiming they have, as the same way that because for the sake of negotiation and demagoguing.
Could it be just because they hate Trump? I'm just.
Well, there's that too. I mean, yeah, but almost everyone wants border security. And the Democrats have historically been okay with the wall. Now they're saying they're not okay at all, where Nancy Pelosi, I think on Friday, somebody asked, a reporter asked her, would you give $1 towards the wall? And Nancy Pelosi gets kind of excited. She goes, $1? Yeah, I'd give $1 to the wall. So but they're in this position of being absolutely against it. Not $1, but Nancy Pelosi would give $1. But if people were allowed to if they weren't in this polarized deal where everybody's being as resistant as they can, then every single politician, except for maybe some crazy or dumb ones, would be in favor of spending billions on border security, whatever that turns out to be. And in a lot of cases along the border, it's going to be wall. In some cases, hundreds of miles, it'll be other stuff. And it's going to cost money. But I assume that when this shit gets worked out, unless we're a completely retarded country, some decent solutions will be found. But it's not going to be 2,000 miles of wall. You yourself said.
Right. I would just like to say decent solutions will be found. Is there another question?
Well, I want your opinion point blank. Do you think it's just Trump? They hate Trump so much they don't want to give him victory no matter what?
Well,
no, I think that they've learned that every time an illegal immigrant comes over the border, that's a new Democrat. And especially if the illegal immigrant managed to impregnate somebody, that's another Democrat in 18 years. The reason that the Democrats have controlled California is because of immigration. And they want to do the same thing to all the other states in the union. So they see power in this. If they have to replace the U.S. population with the population of any country on earth, doesn't have to be Mexico, it could be any country, in order to get more Democrats and get control of the country, then that's what they're going to do. And so every single human being that makes it over that border is a future Democrat, is a future vote. So why would they stop voters from coming over? Well, by building a wall. That's my opinion.
My opinion is that each side.
We've heard your opinion.
All right, so fine. All right, I'll just say it fucking again. That each side right now sees political advantage in not yielding. And yeah, there is some loathing of Trump, but there's a political calculation in the loathing of Trump, because right now it's running, if you look at the average of all surveys, it's 53.5% disapprove of Trump, 41.5% approve of Trump. The Democrats might be more willing to not be intransigent if it were 60% approval of Trump. But right now they see
Trump made the case that you can't impeach him because he's been such a great president these first 2 years.
well, I mean,
The
that's
economy has gone up. The numbers, the unemployment rate just came out. It's very positive.
all right. What you're saying, in case people can't hear, is Trump says you can't impeach a president who's doing a good job.
A great job, he said.
A great job. And then Twitter said, yeah, which president is that? So, I mean, it's not the best argument. Because, I mean, the presidents who have been impeached, and two have, and Nixon would have been impeached.
What would you impeach him for? What has he done that deserves? What high crime or misdemeanor would you say? I'm just posing that question.
All right. Well, there are currently 17 investigations going on into Trump and his various enterprises. And that's before a Democratic-controlled House starts its investigations. So, at the very least, there will be 25 investigations going on 3 months from now, unless some of these investigations wrap up. And they involve the stuff we've been arguing about for 2 years. Financial entanglements, political entanglements with foreign countries, the violating the emoluments clause. I mean,
no one's ever been prosecuted for violating the emoluments clause.
Okay, so I mean, but there are,
let alone impeached.
Do you think it's a dangerous precedent to set? What if there's a wealthy Democrat that becomes president that owns business? I mean, are you gonna be all right with in these investigations looking for a crime?
I'm fine with that. If this is it would be better if we had a less rancorous political situation. But if the precedents being set now mean that every subsequent president is subject to every aspect of his or her financial life being scrutinized and investigated, and every president's just subject to a bunch of investigations, I'm okay with that.
So do you think, Nancy, that Hillary Clinton should be investigated for accepting $145 million to the Clinton Foundation before she approved a uranium transfer to Russia from
I think
Russians?
that whole thing is horseshit. It's already been investigated out the ass.
Well, I don't think it has been. It was not investigated by the Justice Department. There's no special prosecutor.
Yeah, well, she's not president.
Well, it doesn't matter. You could still have a special prosecutor assigned to do it.
He just asked about presidents.
Well, shouldn't it carry through to secretaries of state?
Sure, go ahead, investigate it.
By the way, Lindsey Graham said something very interesting. He said, if you don't have to have a reason to investigate someone, you don't have to have any crime or proof, then they could very well investigate all the Democrat members of Congress and the Senate. He's the head of the Intelligence Committee in the Senate right now, and he says he can very well, we can start investigating all the Democrats. As a matter of fact, the Democrats have a $14 million slush fund that they use to pay off women that have been accused them of sexual harassment.
Just the Democrats?
No, the Republicans are part of it too. Yeah. So why don't we investigate all those people as well?
Okay, if we have.
So you want Nancy Pelosi investigated because she's done very well in Congress. She's a multimillionaire.
Yep.
And Maxine Waters, who funneled banking business to her husband.
Yep.
When she was on the banking committee.
All the Congress people and senators who've gotten rich in the stock market.
So it's okay.
They've done studies.
All right. So then we both agree that the Democrats need to be investigated, right? All these Democrats, Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, let's investigate them too. Because that's what Lindsey Graham says he's going to do. Is that the kind of world you want to live in, Rick? Because we don't need evidence anymore.
No, I want
we
to
don't.
live,
We don't.
no,
we don't
no,
need.
no,
We
no,
don't
I
need
wanna,
any complaint.
I want to
criminal
live in a
complaint.
world, if you're going to do that, that both parties get investigated.
Okay.
But I don't know
all right,
where you're
all
going
right,
to come
all
up.
right.
I mean,
no. But what I'm saying is that now, according to the Rick world, you don't have to have an actual crime. You can just start investigating people, right? Stick the FBI on anyone you don't like, right, Rick?
well, let's be practical.
Well,
No,
practical.
no, let's be
Well,
practical.
let's
All right, there
investigate
aren't-
all the heads of the Democrat Party. We'll start with Hillary Clinton, and then we'll go on to Obama. He did a lot of tricky things. He's a multimillionaire now. I wonder how he got all that money. Yeah.
And he does speaking. No, but here's the deal.
Let's investigate
No,
him.
no, no, let's.
I want to investigate Obama, and I want to investigate Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and Maxine Waters, and Adam Schiff.
Okay,
Let's
here's-
investigate
let's-
those guys.
Let's turn it into how they used to pick teams in kickball in second grade. Each party gets, you just go in order as long as you've got the resources to do it. And I suggest that you don't necessarily use the FBI like agents going out. I think you could build algorithms that would do it more cheaply. You get Google in on it, and you look at people's financial transactions. Because
This is really good. This
No,
is great.
no, here's
We're
the-
going to investigate everybody's finances.
no. Here's the deal, because they've done studies.
Should everybody
No.
release their taxes, by the way?
Yes.
Every member of Congress now has to have their taxes released in public.
Why not? Why not? There's no privacy left anymore. Here's the
Okay,
deal.
so every judge on the Supreme Court,
Yes.
all the major judges, where should it stop? Mayors, governors? Should every single person that holds a voted in office have to release their taxes to the public? All the way
I don't
down
know.
to
I don't
assemblymen
know.
in the city.
I don't know, but I don't mind all the major. I mean, the people holding national office.
Okay. And they should all be investigated whether there's evidence of a
No,
crime
here's
or not.
the deal. Here's the deal.
No,
They've
don't
done
make a joke.
No, I'm
You're
not
just
making
going to make a
joke.
stupid joke.
I'm not. I'm saying that they've done studies.
Just a quick question before you go on. Have you ever been under investigation, or have you ever been in a situation that involves being like a lawsuit or something like that?
Well, I've sued,
But does
and
that,
actually I have been sued.
but does that worry you? Does that take your time? So my point
Yeah,
is,
no, it's hold on.
if
Yeah.
people are being investigated, then they're not governing because they're just worried about defending their name, their honor. Is that?
Well, there's a
is that
couple of
governing
things. Let me
law?
make all the points I've been trying to make. One is they've done studies on how members of the House and Senate do with their stock investments, and they tend to earn money from investments at 2 or 3 times the rate of the average investor, or the average rate at which the market goes up, which it tends to point at insider trading. That the people in the Senate and the House, they get information that members of the public don't have, and they exploit this information, and they get rich off of it.
What is the senator from the Republican House senator, the leader,
I don't know, but
majority leader? He got his eye kicked in. He got rich that way.
from Nevada, yeah. But so yeah, you can look at that stuff.
Harry Reid, the Democrat
Yeah.
senator,
Yeah,
he got rich while in office.
yeah. So you can look at that.
All right, let's change the subject.